Good morning, everyone. My name is Nadia Kangoloo. I am a judge of the High Court of the Supreme Court of Trinidad and Tobago. I've been a sitting judge in the Civil Division for the past 10 years, and prior to that, I had 20 years experience as a litigation attorney in Trinidad and Tobago. A lot of my clients brought to my law firm intellectual property issues, and having not had the opportunity at university, it then not being offered as a course to study IP, I certainly took the opportunity to learn on the run, as it were, about intellectual property in Trinidad and Tobago. That was a long time ago. Since then, I've had the honor of representing Trinidad and Tobago in Geneva at the invitation of the World Intellectual Property Office to discuss with a panel copyright issues. And of course, took the opportunity to highlight the unique issues which I think Trinidad and Tobago presents. I very much enjoy promoting knowledge of and about the enforcement of rights in intellectual property. I always like to highlight what I think is one of Trinidad and Tobago's best assets, and it is our multi-ethnic and multicultural diverse society. As you may know, we are a country of immigrants, some of longer standing than others, mainly made up of persons of African and Indian descent. But over the years, we have had persons come from China, from Syria, and indeed most recently from Venezuela. And that has created an amazing cultural melting pot, which has given rise to a number of creative works that I could consider would be protected by intellectual property. It has also given the opportunity across the board for men and women, young people and old, to play a part in enriching that socially diverse culture that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, I would choose to highlight Trinidad and Tobago's carnival, for which we are world famous. And coming out of carnival in particular, we have two aspects of it that are particularly well known. Our music, known as calypso or soca music, which of course reaches its peak during that world-renowned carnival. The music in particular incorporates elements of African, Indian and European music, and now indeed Latin American music, of course, and it reflects our rich cultural heritage. We also have the costume designs, which the masqueraders parade in over the carnival days, and those two draw from all of those wonderful multicultural diversities. What I can say is that while by and large, we are a patriarchal society as a result of those heritages, which I've just described. What has happened is that many women and young people are coming to the forefront of producing carnival, being involved in carnival, whether it be in the design of carnival costumes, in the writing and performing of calypso and soca songs. And we have world-renowned soca artists who receive world-renowned accolades. One who comes to mind most recently is our Patrice Roberts. And what is interesting, and I think very important about Trinidad and Tobago, is we have a very strong tradition of handing down through the generations. So Patrice Roberts is the daughter of one of our most famous calypsonians who called himself Lord Kitchener. And Patrice was recently invited to sing at the halftime show of a basketball game that involved the Toronto Raptors, and so to showcase what we have in terms of talent. So I do think that carnival is definitely one of the showcases from our multicultural and multi-ethnic society, and as I say, for people of all ages and men and women to showcase their talents in that arena. So let me say this. First of all, we have joined with our global community in ensuring that our judiciary is sensitive to gender, such to the point that I was involved in a committee that produced a gender protocol for the judiciary of Trinidad and Tobago, and we consider that to be important. We consider it important to understand that we have to be gender sensitive, that we have to appreciate that even in a society that has not come from a gender sensitive of history that we must move in that direction, and therefore must begin to use gender neutral terms and other devices to ensure that we're respectful of everyone. Judges, I think, of course, our main task, as you know, is decision making. And in decision making, we either write or deliver those decisions orally. And I think that we can inculcate that respect and that use of gender neutral language when we, in our public decisions, use that type of language. I also think it's important as judges that we remain educators to a certain extent. I sit on the board of our Judicial Education Institute, and one of the things that we look forward to doing is partnering with our stakeholders, whether it be the Law Association or the universities, to ensure that people are aware of their rights, and in particular in relation to intellectual property. I think it is very, very important for us to reach out in particular to the universities, so tertiary education and even secondary education, by way of interaction with those organizations, to ensure that at that level, if you call it entry-level creative works or creative artists, are aware, first of all, that of intellectual property generally, of their rights and of their ability to protect those rights. So certainly, I would say that we would offer ourselves, as we have in other areas, and signed memoranda of agreement with the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus to represent the judiciary, say at open days, to answer questions and give information regarding intellectual property rights. As judges, of course, we're uniquely positioned to create what I would call a moot court, where we could have a sample case on intellectual property and invite students from the university, in particular from the law faculty, to participate, but of course to invite all other members of the university, including academics, not only students, to view that, because academics, of course, produce quite a lot of creative work when they do theses and other publications, and sometimes they're not aware that they have rights in relation to those publications. I think that it's also important that we continue to partner with the Judicial Education Institute of Trinidad and Tobago to ensure that we roll out an awareness. Can I also say that I have enjoyed my interaction with our local TT IPO, Intellectual Property Office, and they continue to do very good work in terms of workshops. Most recently, they had a workshop which involved specifically getting women and girls involved in knowledge about intellectual property. So that's the role that I see for judges and judicial officers. Well, I've already discussed, I think, quite a bit our carnival, of which I'm proud. But what I will say is that while we have that foundation to build on, i.e. our carnival, what has happened within the recent past is that Trinidad and Tobago has been able to put itself on the map in other areas that you may not typically expect a small Caribbean island or twin island republic to be noted for. You may well know of our Nobel laureate in literature, V.S. Naipaul, who set the tone for authors, and we are prolific in terms of the number of local authors, not only local authors, but authors who write about local events, about things that actually touch and concern us, and take that to the world. We've recently had recognition of one of our authors. Her name is Ayana Lloyd, and she won the 2023 OCM Bocas Prize for Caribbean Literature for Fiction for her work When We Were Birds, and that's been critiqued in the New York Times and featured on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. We also have a young lady called Ira Mathur, and albeit that she's of Indian descent and born in India, she's been living in Trinidad and Tobago for a very long time and is a well-known journalist here. And she won the same prize in the non-fiction category for her debut novel, Love the Dark Days. And again, she highlighted aspects in particular of life in Trinidad and Tobago. So for me, that is the beauty of it. And I was able to find an article that was just published a few days ago. Robert Young, one of our well-known fashion designers, whose company is called The Cloth, has just returned from Portugal Fashion Week, where he was able to show his creations on the main runway. And he, of course, was not the first. We had a collaboration of other designers called Pepayo and Mailing, who were featured last year. So Carnival has produced a foundation which has gone on to give us the examples of literature, fashion design, and the possibilities are endless. I say because of that, we have that rich culture that we're able to tap into and to give us the inspiration that we need to take us forth. So what I will say is that intellectual property cases don't often come before the courts as full-blown litigation. They're often resolved before they come to court. The one that I can think of most recently, and I can speak only to the High Court position because it's still before the Court of Appeal, involved, and that was one of the matters I wanted to touch on, food. We are, of course, famous for our food, again, because of that multicultural and multi-ethnic background that we have. And it involved a particular brand of fried chicken. And it was a family-owned business, and there was a name associated with that chicken. It was called Japs Fried Chicken. And as a result of a dispute between the family as to who owned the brand Japs Fried Chicken, family members ended up taking other family members to court to fight over the name. And the learned judge in that matter had to go through the entire history of how the name was arrived at and who was mainly responsible for the name, and not only for the name, but for the production of the main product, the fried chicken. And, you know, a number of family members had to come forth and give evidence in that regard. And it was quite a tangled web that she had to deal with in order to entangle it. And of course, she ultimately made a decision that the matriarch of the family, together with, I believe, her son, was the owner of the brand. But as I say, that is a matter that is on appeal. So that's the one that certainly comes to mind. We have had, of course, a lot of cases that have involved soca artists, for example, sampling, and that's something that's known worldwide, sampling aspects of other songs and challenging them in that regard. And we had one particular judgment where that was dealt with, and albeit that we did not have the expertise, as for example, in that recent Ed Sheeran case, where they had a musical expert who came and was able to analyze bar by bar, note by note, the sampling. I think that our judge at first instance did a very good job of making a decision in that regard with regard to the sampling that took place. What I would like to say is we are in a very, very interesting world when it comes to intellectual property now. We have non-fungible tokens, which are now a thing of the past almost when you think about it. We have AI, we have ChatGPT, we have all of these matters. We have cryptocurrency that we're still trying to grasp and understand. And what I'm interested in judges doing is getting as far ahead of the curve as we can. So as I said, because one, our decisions are often and most often made public and known, so that we can give some guidance through our decisions to the general public and to young people in particular, so that they will understand what their rights are. And more than that, that they can understand that there are opportunities for them in these other diverse areas. I accept that we are famous for, and that we should appreciate that wonderful gift that we've been given, that is Carnival. But I think that it's time for us to pivot and to look to new opportunities to sustain our economy. And I think that we have the opportunity to do that. We're in a very exciting time coming out of COVID. There are so many new opportunities that present themselves.